The festive season is arriving, Christmas around the corner, but British consumers aren't too happy. In fact, the main drivers of the economy are at least confident since just after last year's Brexit vote, the business morale has also softened, shows a survey. Now, these are all signs of a further economic slowdown in 2018, and separate data shows that British house price growth was slower than expected in November. The GfK Consumer Confidence Index dropped by 2 points to -12 in November, its lowest since July 2016, and below the average forecast of a decline to -11 in a Reuters poll. Britain's economy has slowed this year as higher inflation, largely due to the fall in the pound after the Brexit vote last year. It pushed up costs for households and businesses at the start of the month. But the Bank of England raised interest rates for the first time in over a decade to tackle inflation, and that is at a 5-year high. And last week, government forecasts slashed their growth outlook. The GfK and said that household willingness to make big purchases fell to its lowest level since October 2014, in bad news for retailers in the run-up to Christmas. A separate survey by Lloyds Bank also showed that business confidence slipped this month, with economic optimism lowest since June 2016 there. And in fact, joining me live on the programme to discuss more on this is our London Bureau Chief, Mandy Clark. Good evening, Mandy. Not that the Brexit didn't hurt the people in the country much, and now there is another slowdown. In fact, things are not getting better for the country. Now, Bank of England has also increased rates in nearly a decade, and that's a good, in fact, a setback for the country in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bank of England has been warning since August that it would have to put up interest rates. And the big concern, of course, that was going to affect people's mortgages. We're going to see people defaulting on their mortgages. We haven't seen that yet, but that is the big worry in London. And of course, we're seeing a massive slowdown in that housing market, with London, normally an oversaturated, heated market when it comes to housing, really leading the slowdown, which is a big surprise. And the big retail time for British businesses is, of course, that build up to Christmas, when we're expecting lots of people heading to the shops, buying presents. And early indicators, always those Black Friday sales that happened last Friday. It really didn't meet expectations. It was a lot lower than what year previous. That's a big worry, that it's going to mean not a slowdown during December, where retailers are really hoping for that boost ahead of January, February, which is always a slow period when it comes to retail. So it's a big worry for British businesses. Of course, the threat of Brexit always looming in the shadows and really affecting the economy. So bad news all around for Britain at the minute.
Absolutely, Mandy, and bad news continues since, in fact, the country has not been able to sort out its Brexit issues. The negotiations are still stagnant, and the British government is rather, in fact, looking forward on how to resolve these issues, particularly because it's hurting the Bank of England, it's hurting their financial sector, the banking sector, nonetheless.
Absolutely, and having that uncertainty just means that businesses are not investing, because they don't know what it's going to happen to the British economy 2 years down the line, when all those Brexit negotiations should have been wrapped up. Because of that, we're seeing lots of people in the financing making the decision to move jobs that are currently in London to Frankfurt and Paris. So we're seeing the banking sector already kind of hedging their bets and moving staff already. It's bad news for Britain, because every time they lose jobs, they're losing economic power. So ideally, what Theresa May wants to do is get that trading agreement happening sooner rather than later, to provide a level of certainty for banks and institutions and companies, so they feel they can start investing again in Britain.
All right, Mandy, thank you, in fact, for joining us on the programme and giving us those details. Of course, Brexit trail continues and the problems still unresolved for the Britons.